Hello, everyone. Welcome again. I hope everyone can hear me now. I'm just going to start over. And again, today is May 4th, 2022. I am Solid Blue Sister. And finally, it is my turn to talk. Oh my goodness. Today has been a day. Thank you, Brina. You're number one. Frankie, sorry, we're starting the show over again. You're number two. And everyone over on YouTube, I apologize for the restart. Hello, Baram. Okay, and once again, anyone over on YouTube, if you want to join the conversation vocally, you'll have to come over to Podbean, but you can join in by chat. Okay, Mama Bear Tracy, thank you. Thank you guys for coming back. I'm only like a half hour late. All right, so Lou Rock, welcome, welcome. Okay, so I'll start my spiel over again. Regrets, do you have them? All right, so better late than never. This is true. This is true. Okay, do you have regrets? What is the one thing in life you regret and wish you could change? And for me, well, first I'll say this: is it a job? Do you regret a marriage? Do you regret a relationship? Do you regret not saying something to someone that you should have and then it was too late? Do you regret moving from one place to another? What is the one thing that you regret? And for me, the one main thing in life that I regret, and I told you guys about this guy, so I'm not going to go into what he did because you all already know what he did. But I regret dating this one guy. And if I could turn the clock back, that whole part of my life would just be gone. It was in my 20s, and that is just one thing that you know, I just wish that I could take back. Okay, and Mama Bear says yes to all of those questions. Let's see. Have I ever? I have a job that I did not like, but I don't regret having it because I did learn something that was useful later on. So even though it was kind of like the job from hell, but I did learn something uh, that helped me later on down the road. So okay, Brina says my 20s are filled with regrets if we are talking men. Okay, okay. Now I will say that my 20s for me, I think my 20s were, well, they weren't the best. They weren't the best. I did a lot of foolish things in my 20s. But in my 30s are where things really started to just, I guess you can say the stars started to line up for me. But my regrets are in my 20s. And Lurak says, my biggest regret was my first job opportunity, and it would have triggered all different things leading into my future. So are you saying your biggest regret, your first job, you're saying opportunity? So are you saying that you didn't take the job and you wish that you did? Or it was your first job and you wish you didn't? And Mama Bear says, boy, I have some regrets with guys in my 20s. I didn't date a lot in my 20s. I just, but later on I just dated this, excuse my French, and if you're listening or watching on YouTube, yes, you were an asshole. That was the only regret, that I have in terms of men. Um some, yeah, you do date some guys, whatever, but nothing, catastrophic except for that one guy. Okay, and Brina says, I think I would say I allow too many people to stay in my life longer than they deserve. Okay. And Lou Rock says, I got a good job opportunity, was getting a job at Mercedes Benz, but the job was too intimidating and I didn't take it. Huh. Was it because you were a salesperson? Was the sales part of it intimidating? Because I do not like sales at all. And I think I would be horrible at sales. In fact, I know I would. Fresh out of Lincoln Tech, just graduated mechanic school. So, were you going to be a mechanic for Mercedes, or I mean, if they were giving you an opportunity, apparently they thought you were qualified. So, I was young and timid. Okay, and a mechanic. Okay, so I want to go back to Brina because you said I think I allowed too many people to stay in my life longer than they deserve. Brina, I think now welcome Crucible. Um, you know, I think that in terms of allowing people or letting people stay in your life longer than they, and it's interesting the way you say than they deserve. I think we all go through that. I think every phase of our life, you know, that happens. I think that there are people that come in and out of your life, and people that you do allow to stay in your life longer than they should. But the word "deserve" that you're using is interesting to me. Welcome, Heiko and Grit. Welcome. So let's see. So, do you guys have okay, so Lou Rock says that he missed a job opportunity, because he was young and he was timid. So, does anyone else out there regret a job that they wish they had taken, but they didn't? And had they taken this job, it would have led them down a different road than where they are now. Okay. One of my first jobs was working as an usher, and I was in my teens, and I worked with a lot of big name people, whatever. And that job actually helped me in terms of talking to people. So when I got my first real job out of college, um, I think that usher job that I had in my polyester suit that was hot as hell, I think that job helped me talk to people. So, Crucible, I do not see you on my panel, but if you start talking, you will probably pop up. Are you there? Because I do not.
Hello?
Okay, now I can hear you. I don't know. Popping has just been crazy, and it was really crazy for me today. So, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I have a job regret. It was a job I actually regret leaving the job because it would have ended up going in a lot of positive directions, but I was very anxious and very impatient at the time, and I just couldn't wait to get on to the next thing. And I left a very good advertising agency job. It was an entry level job out of college, and it was paying pretty decently, and it was exactly what I wanted to do. But I didn't think I was moving up fast enough, so I kind of got anxious, and I interviewed for this job sales position based out of Boston. I live in Chicago, and I wouldn't had to move, but it was a whole different set of advertising business skills that I just didn't really have. And as it turns out, I took the job, and within let me say 9 months' time, the company had gone out of business. I tried to go back to the original place that I went to, and they'd already filled my position. And it was a good 6 months while I was looking for another job. It ended up getting one, and it turned out actually very fortuitously because it turned out it turned into some very good things for me in my career. But at the time, I was probably 23, 22, something like that, and I just could not wait. And my mother advised me against it. She said, "You haven't been there long enough. You need to pay your dues," kind of a thing. And I wasn't in the dues paying mode, and it cost me. Ultimately, it turned out fine, but in the short run, there, it taught me a valuable lesson that, in spite of what your ambitions are, other people have a say in it. And you cannot just start dictating your terms because you're young and full of ambition. And it could have been a very costly decision. It turned out not to be. But at the time, I paid a pretty high price for just not wanting to wait my turn.
Okay. Okay. And in terms of jobs, um, back in the day, you would have a job and you would stay there for 25, 30 years. You retire with a gold watch, you know, you get your pension, you know, and that's it. But now, um, if you stay on a job too long, they're questioning, well, why are you there for so long? Or, you have people who, every year or every 2 years, they're changing jobs. So I don't know that is, that nowadays people just get antsy. But and I say that because I'm reading what Lurak said, where he says, the second job I got was Honda. I took it and spent 12 and a half years. So, I mean, that's a long time to be on a job. So I'm going to change it up a little bit more. So does anyone regret any relationships that they have been in, where you wish that you had not gotten married, you wish that you did get married, um, he or she was the one that got away? Anybody? And Brina, I know you already said your 20s with men.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have a regret. It's kind of a along those lines. It's kind of a big one, unfortunately, with lots of implications and ramifications. People who know me, I've been single all my life. It was not a decision I made lightly. I had met plenty of opportunities when I was young to get married and have kids, and I passed on them all, not because I was wanted to run around and date a bunch of women. That wasn't really it. I wasn't convinced I was the marrying type. And then what I mean by that is, from a structural standpoint, I had a pretty good idea of what the demands of marriage were. Not having been married, you can say, well, how would you know that? Well, I knew a lot of married people. I saw my parents, my siblings had gotten married, and I was very concerned that I was not that personality type. And then you have kids factored in there, and you think, well, am I a parent type? Could I make this work long term? Will I be chafing at the bit? Will I be feeling like I'm confined? All those things I really, really put into the blender and mixed the whole thing up and tried to come to the right decision. And I passed on all that stuff, and I'm still single. And while I believe I made the right choices, my regret is not so much not getting married or having children. My regret is failing to anticipate or participate in longer term thinking. In other words, try to get past the immediate. Well, you're going to have to compromise. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. You won't be able to watch as many baseball games. You won't be able to do this, that, or the other thing in your free time anymore. And I got too caught up in the short term instead of thinking, well, wait a minute. You're in your 30s now. Things aren't always going to be this way. You're going to hit some rough spots down the road. You're going to be alone at some point. You're going to want kids or grandkids or a wife, kind of a thing. And instead of saying bite the bullet, you have to go through some things to reap the benefits of your hard work and your compromises. And that's where the regret comes in. I didn't see long term enough. I was too much into the short run. How do I feel right now? And that was used to govern my decisions. And in retrospect, I think a little bit of foresight and a little bit of a better understanding of what the years later in life might look like would have probably resulted in a different decision. So it isn't so much the regret of not having gotten married or having kids, it was the regret of not having gone through a more thoughtful exercise that might have yielded a different result.
Oh, okay. All right. I have a question for you, Crucible, but I'm going through the chat. Okay, Bria says I can't say that I regret any because I did learn good lessons. I just stayed longer than I should have. And Lurock says I tend to jump the gun quick. I fall hard and fast, and I had kids, and it didn't work out. And Mama Bear says I regret one relationship because it was abusive. And Lou Rock is responding to Mama Bear. Yeah, I was in for a long time, abusive on both sides, and I definitely regret staying longer than I should have. And Brina, oh yeah, I've been there. I thought my 20s and 30s would last forever. Okay, so Crucible, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you remember a conversation we had years ago? And you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm paraphrasing here. You said something like we were talking about relationships and marriage, and you said you don't think that marriages. You either said you don't think marriages last longer than 10 years or should last longer than 10 years because you think people get bored with each other. Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Okay, so after what you just said, do you still think that over time people who are married get bored with each other?
The short answer is yes. I think it depends on the people. People are I don't want to say the word needier, but some people they're less they require less. Let's just put it that way. They set their expectations at a probably reasonable level or maybe at a low level, and they're okay with the humdrum, I guess, is what marriage becomes. I'm not. That's not a critical comment. It becomes life can become a humdrum exercise after a while, depending on what you're doing. But I think human nature says that we all have. There's a saying. I don't know if it relates specifically to marriage, but they refer to something like the 7-year itch. I think that's a marital reference, and I think just human nature in general. I don't care if it's a marriage, a relationship, a job. I think we have a limited amount of attention span, really engaging attention span, where the other person, the job, whatever it is the most important thing in the world, and it's just they're fascinating to us. So I think over time, yes. Do I think people get bored? Absolutely. There's no question about it. The difference where I have regrets is not anticipating things like boredom, things like frustration, things like feeling confined. I don't doubt that there's a person alive who's been married, who didn't feel those things. I chose to think I could beat them. And there are certain things you can't beat. So yes, there were some certain limitations about the marriage entity that I was always concerned about. I don't think people are geared for 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 years. There's an old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. And I think people just decide they're going to get past it. If you make up your mind to say, I know there's going to be days I don't like my spouse, or I know there are going to be days I don't like my kids. I mean, if you can accept those things and still persevere, and still see all of the good things that come from kids in marriage, then I think that's where the thinking should have lost. For me, should have been placed. I was too caught up in focusing on the limitations of marriage and kids instead of the benefits.
Okay, all right. Now, Brina says people change, but when you love someone, you grow together and help them. And she also says, I haven't been married yet, but I'm doing it once and he's stuck with me. Uh, and Lurak says, if you get bored with someone, you marry the wrong one. Now, there's a lot there. There's a lot to what Crucible said, there's a lot to what Brina said, and there's a lot to what Lurak said. But I do believe this, okay, having been married almost 25 years. I do believe that you can get bored with your spouse. I believe your spouse can get bored with you. I believe that there are times when you guys need to just, you go in one room, he's in the other room, or, he wants to go off with his friends, you want to go off with yours, whatever. And I think that you, that in marriages, you can get just comfortable with each other. That doesn't mean to say you don't love the person, but you just get, okay, today it's gonna be the same thing. She's gonna look like this. He's gonna look like this. And then when you have kids, it does change the dynamic. And I can honestly say that before my son was born, I mean, literally up to the time that he was born, my life was one way. And as soon as he came, it was like immediately my entire life changed, my entire marriage dynamic changed. So I can understand saying that after 10 years, you can get bored with each other. And you look at someone who's been married, 60 years, or I look at Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, they've been married for 70. That's a long time to be with one person. So anybody want to comment? Okay, Lou Wright, you say that's amazing and a blessing. My parents were married for 60 up until my dad passed. That's amazing and a blessing. That's amazing and a blessing. And sometimes, as a child looking in, sometimes I don't know how they did it, uh, so I don't know, but I applaud, the people who are in it for the long run. Welcome, Daddy Hasselhoff, and welcome, Power Girl. Um, so let's see. Okay, so my next question. I want to talk about location. Does anyone regret not moving to a new city, town, country, planet? I don't know. Um, or do you regret making that move? Um, I've been in California for about almost 24 years, having moved from the Midwest. I always wanted to live somewhere warm. I don't regret it at all. Um, but sometimes I look at people who have never moved, who have never lived somewhere else, and I just wonder to myself, like, how can they stay in the same place for that long? Don't they want to move? And I understand this. A lot of people stay for family, whatever. But sometimes I do wonder if people say they wish they had of. I know my mom always wanted to move out to California, but my father never wanted to move. So what do you do? Do you get divorced so you can move, or you just stay because that one person wants to stay there? Do you regret something like that you wish you had moved to one place but you didn't because of someone else? Anybody? Okay. I always love my kids. There's never a day I wouldn't love them. Okay. Okay, Lou, right. I'm taking you're referring to what Crucible said. That there are sometimes you don't want to be around your kids. Is that? I'm just catching up on the comments here. And Lou Rock says, "Well, society has shown us that you don't need your partner. Temptations everywhere. Bad influences are everywhere." And yes, Sabrina says, "Yes, I do," which I got out when I was younger. Lou Rock says, "Where's the plane?" Mama Bear says, "I stay for family and I love where I live. I've lived here for 49 years." Okay. Lou Rock. I lived in Jersey for almost 30 years now, and I've lived here in Florida. Okay, so Brina, if you were to move, where would you like to move? Where is there any particular place that you would like to move? Puerto Rico. All right. All right. Hawaii is my ultimate goal. That's where I would love to end up. It's expensive as hell, but that's where I would love to end up. So, okay. I was married there. So, yes, it is. It is. It is very, very pretty. So, Crucible, I know on a past show, I just want to make sure I have this straight because I could be wrong. Did you say that you did not move because your mom wanted you to stay close, wanted everybody to stay close?
That was part of it, but back in the, I guess it would have been the early 90s, I was dating a woman in California. I live in Chicago, and it was a long distance thing for a good 5 years. And when we first started dating, I absolutely loved California. I couldn't get it out of my head. I thought this is a place I could live. I was never been there before, and I was completely smitten by the place. I love warm weather. I love the sun, and I thought, what could be better? And then my mother is a very uh, is very big on having a very close knit family with all of her kids nearby, and I always knew that. But as we got closer, and had I made this decision in the first couple of years of the relationship, I probably would have moved to California. But as the relationship went on, and we got into the kind of back to what you said earlier about the time frame of how long you're with somebody, it wasn't so much boredom, but I just started to wonder, the enthusiasm for the relationship and the move to California had kind of cooled over the years as they do. And I got to thinking, not only would I be out of Chicago, which I really thought fit my sensibilities. Some people are born to be in California. Some people are born to be in Florida. It's their natural habitat. They take to it so beautifully. I feel the same way about Chicago. I'm a Midwestern guy. I like the whole persona of Chicago. It's a rough and tumble kind of a place. You got to make your mark. It's a rough blue collar, kind of environment, and it always suited my sensibilities. And I never thought California just doesn't line up with who I am. And I felt there would be too many changes. I'd been going out to California for 5 years, off and on, to date this woman. I thought I had a pretty good idea of the culture and what would be involved in living out there. And the more I went, I began to realize I don't belong out here. I don't fit out here. It's not just the sun and the nice weather. There's a cultural thing that I felt I'd be swimming upstream. So I didn't do it. I'm still in Chicago. I think it was the right decision because it isn't just the weather. I've always been fascinated with people who say, well, I want to move someplace warm. Well, okay, I get that part of it, especially if you have arthritis or if there's health issues, but there's so much more that goes into choosing where you're going to live in terms of how it feels with your persona and your sensibilities, that the weather was always so far down my list. It was always baffling to me why people put such a premium on weather when there's so many other dynamics that affect your quality of life when you decide to move to another city.
Well, I will say that I have wanted to move to California since I was 10. And yes, I did want to move someplace warm. And yes, I love California for various reasons. So it wasn't just the weather, but living in Chicago, dealing with the snow and the cold weather, and having to warm your car up, a half hour before you drive it, to go to work, and the winters and what have you, and starting not to get any seasons and what have you. I wanted to move to California even more, but ever since I was 10 years old, California was the place that I wanted to be. And again, I wanted to be somewhere warm. So believe me, a lot of thought went into uh, moving. So Grit, you have the mic.
Hey, how's it, everybody? Guys, can you hear me fine?
I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, my my only regret is I regret not immigrating way sooner than I did. Um, it's it would have been so much easier and better for me and my family if we had done it so much sooner. But it's quite a big step and a big decision to make, you know. So yeah, I just regret not going sooner.
So, okay, but you went from South Africa to New Zealand.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so you're saying that you wish you had moved to New Zealand sooner?
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Okay, okay. Any particular reason why?
Um, yeah, a number of them. You know, living in South Africa, it feels like it's tough. You know, you can't like do anything. You know, it feels like you're just working and going home, and you know, unless you like a freaking lawyer or a doctor or something, a high paid job, you can actually get out and do stuff and um, acquire things. You know, here in New Zealand, you don't need to be any of those type of things, and you can be an average guy and still um, go out and do a whole lot of stuff without needing a lot of money. And you know, just a simple thing like buying a car. You know, buying a car in New Zealand, we we landed here, and within the first week, we went to a dealership and I bought a car in the same day. You know, you just don't do that in South Africa. South Africa, it takes you, you know, easily almost a month before you get your vehicle. Here,
Wow.
you walk in a dealership, you sign papers, and you walk out the same day with a vehicle. You know, it's just simple things like that makes it more possible being in a country like this than in South Africa.
Okay. All right. Now, Danny Hasselhoff says, born and raised in Wisconsin, loved the Four Seasons, moved to Florida, and lasted 6 months. Never want to go back to that state. I visited Florida many times, and that is one state I would never ever want to live in. And Brina says, here in Jersey, we have all four seasons in the same week sometimes. And Mama Bear says, we have had all four in one day. You don't like Florida? The summer heat is rough. I get that. Florida, the humidity that gets you. Plus, the mosquitoes are like birds. It's so big. Um, that's how I feel about Cali. I could never live there. Now, I will say it took me about a year to get used to living here, but every day when I walk out of my house, it's like um, I'm in a painting. When I walk down the street and I'm looking at mountains and just, I'm someone who I love flowers and everything, and just constantly, this is what I see, and that is what I like. I can't afford to live in California, and there's a saying here in California: if you decide to move out of state, don't sell your house, because you probably won't be able to afford to get back in. Um, but yeah, okay, all right. So, is there anything in childhood that you wish you would have done differently, or anything in your childhood that you wish that you had done, or you didn't do, or a kid that you were mean to, or uh, you had a crush on? Anything that you wish in your childhood that you would want to change?
Solid. I honestly can't remember my childhood very much.
Really? Okay, okay. I remember mine. Because there was just, I mean, so much, going on. I had a really good group of friends. One of them comes on the show every so often, a feisty one. I've known her since I was 6. Um, uh, I had fun. We were outside riding bikes. We played, double dutch. I mean, this is before, we didn't have cell phones and all this other stuff. It's like we played outside. we were constantly outside, and um, just fun. We went on family vacations. Uh, uh, my mom used to let me spend the night over, not everyone's house, but two particular friends. She would come over to my house, spend the night. I would go over her house to spend the night. Just fun. Um, yeah, yeah. But the only thing I did not like is, does anybody remember? And maybe you all didn't have this, day camp where you would go to this park for the day, and you would have all these activities. It was basically your parents' way of getting you out of the house for 6 weeks. And you went to swimming, and you played tennis, and just softball and all that other stuff while you were roasting in the sun, saying, I want to go home. Whatever. So did anybody, I mean, anybody have anybody? Let's see. Yes, dedicated more time to soccer. Lou Rock says, and Rena says, I wish I went to trade school to be a mechanic instead of a regular college for a degree I don't use. Okay. All right. And Lou Rock says, I was an excellent striker. It's on my bloodline, just never had anyone to motivate me. I don't know what a striker is. So can you enlighten me on what a striker is, or does anybody else know? Or Lurak, could you? I don't know what a striker is. I'm actually looking it up now. The guy who scores most of the, okay, for soccer. Okay. 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 Like a forward. All right. So does anybody wish they played sports and they didn't? Crucible, Grid?
No, I played sports. I was pretty good at a few sports, not good enough to ever go past high school, but I think may have had this conversation. I mean, I think when you think about regrets, there can kind of fall into two categories. Regrets that you really thought you could have been good at something, maybe sports, or in my case, wanting to play a musical instrument. And there's another thing about regretting that you weren't good enough. You didn't have those skills. It wasn't in your genes to excel at this particular thing. And the reason I bring up playing a musical instrument, I did try to play one later in life, much later in life from childhood. And from what I'm told, and it's not making excuses, I probably just don't have the talent. But when you're older, it's harder to learn everything just about. For some reason, when you're a child, or when you're in your childhood, your learning abilities, your adaptation, and your ability to apply yourself. I don't know what the actual scientific explanation, but what I'm told is that to take up a skill or try to learn something in adulthood is just harder than it is in childhood. It may have been that because I had friends of mine who would play musical instruments, and their personalities, I noticed, were very different from mine. They were very quiet, they were very studious, and they could sit and play a violin or play a piano for 4 hours straight with their parents standing there and never waver. I would lose my mind after 30 minutes if was forced to sit there. So I started to think about, okay, is it as simple as I regret not learning to play the guitar or play the piano? Or am I just being realistic to say I probably would have struggled with that more than would have been enjoyable? I mean, when you're taking up a hobby, the first rule is you should enjoy it. And part of enjoying it is being good at it. And if you're not any good at it, you're not going to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to practice. And so I've kind of connected the dots on that. It's easy to conclude I regret not learning a musical instrument. But is the real regret, I wish I had the skill to do it. Was I just not talented enough? And no matter how many times I wanted to wave a magic wand and say, you're going to be a good piano player, it was never in my genes. And so my regret is that maybe I didn't pursue it harder. But in the end, I probably wasn't talented enough no matter what time of my life I decided to pick it up.
Now, I have to disagree with you there, because you don't have to necessarily be good at playing an instrument to enjoy it. I mean, there are people who cannot play an instrument, but they love sitting down and they'll, fiddle with those strings, or they'll sit down and bang on that piano, and they're having a good old time. So I have to disagree on that part of it. And I know that we have talked about the guitar, and I still say that you should, try to do it. It's something that I've picked up. I've sat down, picked up, sat down. Picked up over the years. I started playing when I was 12. I put it down again in my 20s. Picked it up again in my 30s, put it back down, and now I am playing. I mean, I enjoy it. And when you just read about how many people as they get older are learning how to play an instrument, a lot of them do pretty well. So maybe it is, that you're impatient, but I think that you can learn how to play anything if you're 102. So to me, if you want to do it, then you'll do it. So, Grit.
Yeah, getting into instruments. I used to play the trumpet um, when on my finishing years of school. I had a friend of mine that played it, and um, I thought, let me try it out, and yeah, I picked it up pretty well. I regret not maybe going further with music, because I ended up uh, giving it up, um, and I found I was pretty good at reading music, and I even wrote one or two um, songs, or if you want to call it songs or tunes or whatever. But yeah, I regret not maybe going further with it.
And again, I think that, if it's something, instead of saying you regret it, why don't you pick it up and try it? I mean, because you just say you regret, you regret. Your regret should be, in my opinion, that you're not trying it again. I mean, because nothing's over until you're dead. So to me, you can do anything and try anything. And Lou Rock says, "Don't hurt my ears." And Rena says, "Like me trying to sing in their car alone." I mean, how many people? I mean, I cannot I cannot hold a tune to save my life, but if I'm in the car by myself singing, I think I am jamming like I don't know what. You cannot tell me that I cannot sing if I'm in the car by myself. So, welcome, GP man. So, uh, I am Mariah Carey. All right. Well, Brina, I try to be Whitney. Of course, I'm not, but can't tell me anything. So, but I'm having fun. So, Okay, and Lou Rock says, Brina, you are the next Whitney, or Mariah. You got our support. So, see, there you go. So, Crucible, you want to respond to any of these comments, or anything that I said, or what Grit said?
Yeah, I think the thing about regrets is, we all have them. If you've lived, past the age of 25, you're going to have regrets. Um, I think the challenge, you can't carry them around, because, like you said, you make a good point. You're never too old to try anything. That really is a cop out. And if I sound like I'm making excuses, maybe I am. But you're never too old to pick the guitar up again, or try to learn a foreign language. So there's. You're right. As long as you're still walking the earth, you can never say never. But I think the thing about regrets is not to regret them too much, without getting too wordsmithy here. You have to forgive yourself and understand you were because one of the things about regrets is you were making a decision at a point in time that you may not recall right now. A lot of regrets go back 30 and 40 years, and it's hard to remember exactly what your thought process was at the time. you may have been trying to decide, well, I'm good at this sport, like F1 was talking about, or I'm sorry, it was Lou Rock talking about soccer. And maybe you had to make a decision between soccer, a musical instrument, a foreign language. You just couldn't do them all. Or maybe there were constraints of other types that conspired against you. Whatever the case may be, it's hard to picture exactly where you were mentally and physically at the time you decided you made a decision. So I think a hard thing to do is to go through life with a lot of regrets and things that you can't change. You have to remember decisions are made at a point in time with all kinds of factors that may not exist today. And you make the best decision you can with the best information you have at the time, weighed against other circumstances, and you move forward. And so I think the challenge is to acknowledge that we've made decisions that we wish were different, but at the time we made them based on the facts on the ground. And to go through life beating yourself up over regrets is probably not healthy, but it's good to understand the thought process you went through when you made some of these decisions, and it may make them a little bit easier to live with.
True, true. I mean, but at the same time, just going back to things that are simple to fix, um, like learning how to play an instrument, or I wish I spent more time at the art um, institute or something like that. That's something that you can fix. You can still go. I mean, there are things that I think that as we get older, we put on age. I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to do that. Are you really? I mean, you have 80, 90-year-old people jumping out of planes. Because one thing that I always said that I did not want to do, and I would regret it if I did. I don't want to be that person who, gets old and I'm sitting on my front porch literally watching the world go by because I'm thinking I'm too old to do this or I can't do that. Yes, I can. I can get up off my butt and I can do it. And even if you have physical limitations, there are still things that people are doing, and that right there is a motivator, to do something. So I can understand you regret, you didn't take that first job, or, things that you can't turn the clock back and fix. But going forward, there's a lot of things that you may not have done 10, 20 years ago that are easily fixable that you can do now. But that's just my opinion. And Brina says, some circumstances make us miss on things, but it's not always too late to try again. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And then Brina also says, yes, self analysis has helped me not to feel so bad about missing out on certain things. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Lurak says, I regret not doing well in school. Lurak, I regret my sophomore year, my first semester sophomore year. That I do regret. And I think about that semester. For some reason, that pops in my mind a lot. That first semester sophomore year was horrible. My grades were horrible. Welcome GVS and welcome. I can't read your name, but welcome. Okay, Grit, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, I just want to say I was actually speaking to my wife last night, and we stay in such a small little town that there's not much to do around here, and we were speaking about what can we do with our spare time. So I might just actually take up learning a new musical instrument. Maybe that'll give us something to do. You can give me an idea.
Okay, all right. Well, I will say that every day usually between the hours of 10 and 11:30, I am playing my guitar. So that is one thing that I said that I was definitely going to. I've gotten back into it, and I'm gonna hammer away. And officially welcome Crazy Train. Okay, so, and Brina, you said something else. You're always saying something. It's either you, where is it? I can't find it. Okay. Oh, okay, no, I'm sorry. It was Lou Rock. Lou Rock says, I literally ruined the most important year, my junior year. Okay. Yeah, school, um, and Lou Rock, I would love to play for you sometime. Um, you know, school, when you're a teenager, you have those kids who from freshman year they have their heads in the books, they're getting straight A's. You know that this freshman, when you all graduate, this kid is going to be the one who is valedictorian. You know who that person is. And then you have the ones who they're goofing off, and what have you. And it's a miracle that they even walk across the stage. um, but school is something that I think that we as parents, or at least your formative years in high school, those are important years. And for whatever reason, a lot of people don't take it seriously. And I'm not talking about the kids who, really, really try, but they just can't seem to, in algebra, they can only get that C, but they are trying. But then you have the ones that are goofing, they're goofing off, they're skipping class, whatever. I think that we as a society needs to put more emphasis on education in our formative years, not necessarily college, because everyone is not college material. And with the cost of it, it's like, really. But in terms of our formative years, and especially high school, I think that you know the younger crowd really needs to understand just how important it is to get good grades in high school. So, anybody disagree with me on that? Or see, Brina says, I'm sorry, Lurak says, I never took school seriously. I graduated in summer school. It felt like crap. Okay. And Brina says, additional college is overrated. I feel like lately you just pay for the networking opportunity. And you're talking about the traditional college. Okay. And Crazy Train says, I went to trade school, graduated high school barely. And Brina says to Crazy Train, I wanted to go to be a mechanic, but I messed that up. Okay. So, and that's another thing too, because everyone is told, you have to go to college. You have to go to college. And I have a degree that I'm not using. Um, but at the same time, when I got out of college, you know, in terms of like student loans and everything, they were capped. It wasn't like you can go borrow, $200,000 and you're 80 years old and you're dying in debt. Back then we had something called like Pell grants, where the most you can get was $5,000. So when you got out of college, you're like, oh my God, I owe $5,000 now. It's like that's nothing. But I do believe that uh, that high school degree is important in those high school years in terms of school. I think they are important. And Brina says having support at home is really important. Okay. Brina, Crazy Trains responding. Brina, I started there too, messed that up, then went to school again for another trade later on. And Lou Rock, me either. I have degree in automotive and I'm a food salesman now. It's cleaner and I make more money. And Crazy Train says mine was paid for when I got laid off a job like 10 years ago. Okay, we need a time machine. Yes, Brina, we do need a time machine. I can go back and get rid of that guy I dated in my 20s. Yes. Okay, so Crucible, Grit, you guys want to say anything else, or we can wrap this up?
Well, the thing about, I agree with you about high school. I went to high school and to college, and there was no comparison. And my parents, they sent us to very, what at the time was very expensive private Catholic school, high school. And we had, we had five children in the family. And my parents said, we will pay for this tuition for all 4 years, but when you get to college, you're on your own. We're not going to be able to afford to pay for everybody's college. So they gave us a 4 years heads up. In those 4 years, I went to one of the best high schools in the state. That's just not my opinion. That was the according to the rankings and the statistics at the time. And it was almost like a college. The courses, the discipline, the learning, the people that I met. I mean, the whole thing was just a great 4 years. And then I went to college, and I was so irresponsible. I almost flunked out my freshman year. I changed colleges, had two jobs, blah, blah, blah. Completely missed out on the college experience because I was working and I was just an idiot. But I think high school sets you up, because you're right about the word formative. I don't think you're forming as much in college as you are in high school. So I think the things you learn in high school, the habits you develop, the people you meet, the things you decide to study and get interested in, those are the things that I think sustain you over the course of your life if you're lucky enough. Because not everybody goes to college. And like I said, even if you go to college, it doesn't mean it's going to turn out well. So I agree with you on the formative years. There's things that happen and influence you during that time that are completely different than even 4 years later, from your freshman year of high school to your freshman year of college. That's only 4 years, but life changed. You grew up a lot in those 4 years, and the next 4 years are going to be completely different. So I'm a big believer in taking advantage of those formative years, because you don't get them back.
Well, not only that. I not just in terms of your education, but I also think that high school also sets you up for learning how to talk to people, learning how to interact with people. I mean, you're not in elementary school anymore. You're not where, yes, your parents may pick you up from school and everything, but the way you interact with your classmates are different. And the way you interact with your teachers, you're just, at a different level. And I think that high school really teaches you a lot. So you put everything together. If try to maintain, a decent GPA. And if you're hanging out with the right crowd, and when I say the right crowd, I'm talking about the ones that aren't leading you down the wrong path. I think that when you come out of high school, whether or not you continue on to a university or you get a job, um, I think you'll be on the path to success. And I don't think you'll have any regrets there. So that's just not my crazy train says I'm still not grown. Uh, the pain is temporary, lessons are forever. Okay, and crazy train, Brina says you're speaking to her soul. Okay, Grid, did you want to make any last comments before we wrap this up? Let's see.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I went to a trade school, but I started in the second term, so I didn't really have many options to choose in which trade I wanted to go to. So I had to take whatever was available, which at the time was welding. Um, so I did welding in my trade school. I did pretty well. I got like good grades right through until I finished. But yeah, I just regret not maybe taking on a trade that I would have probably used, when I left school. So yeah, like I mean, I finished high school, got into a job straight away, and I jumped between different jobs to until I found what I enjoyed doing. And yeah, it's been like 20 odd years that I've been in the security trade, which
Okay.
I found more interesting. Yeah.
All right. Let me ask this one last question. This is to everybody. If you had your choice of trade, um, what would you have liked to have done, or what would you do? And like Brina, I would choose to be a mechanic. So, what would you guys want to do if you all went to trade school?
Well, for me, like my family, like my dad was a mechanic, and we us boys used to help him on weekends on his cars and stuff, and he used to do customers' cars and services. So we were always working on vehicles. So my childhood days, my passion was working on cars and stuff. So that's what I probably would have chosen if I had the choice to choose in my trade school what I wanted to do. But um, yeah, I still worked on vehicles and stuff on weekends, but in school I did welding.
Okay,
Um,
all right.
yeah.
Crucible.
Yeah, I would prefer to be a supervisor because I'm the least mechanically inclined person on the planet. So I would be a disaster no matter what. I mean, it comes to work. My father was a brilliant guy with his hands. He worked in a service industry and for people's gas. He could fix a furnace. He could fix an air conditioner. He could fix anything. And I can't find with my ass with both hands when it comes to mechanical stuff. So thank God for college. They at least will let me get in and pretend to get a degree. But if I had to rely on my hands to make a living, I'd be living in a refrigerator box somewhere right now.
So, okay, so um, I'm gonna ask this question again. So, let's say college was not in the picture, okay. And again, if you just had your dream wish, not saying that you can do it, if you just had your wish trade, what would it be?
Well, I've just watched guys work when I've had them over to the house to do various things, and I probably would be okay with maybe a heating and air conditioning type of a thing where you're not getting dirty with grease and oil and stuff like that. It's a pretty straightforward thing. You're working inside. I probably could make that work.
Okay, all right, all right. And let's see. I'm sorry. Crazy Train says I'm very mechanically inclined, and I'm grateful. You know, Crazy Train, I will go to YouTube in a minute to fix something. So, um, see something, and Angie says something with women's aid. And Lurak said, I would be a mechanic again. I love my job and all my coworkers. That's another thing too. You gotta love your coworkers. Everybody doesn't love their coworkers. Oh boy. All right. So everyone, that's it. That's all I've got. I appreciate you guys hanging out and waiting for me. I started the show a half hour late. I was having Podbean issues and other computer issues. So thank you so much. And if anyone over on YouTube, if you were listening, anybody, thank you. So on that note, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day or evening wherever you are in the world. I will be here tomorrow, same time, hopefully on time. Other than that, go where the wind takes you, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye. And thank you, Grit and Crucible, for coming up on the panel. And everyone, please like and follow the show. I would appreciate it. I'm trying to get to 100,000. And Crazy Train, I think this is your first time on my show. Thank you. I think. And Lou Rock, thank you. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love again. Thank you. Well, thank you, Crazy Train, for coming. Oh, and Balram is going to have his show tomorrow. I do Pacific time, so is it 11 o'clock Pacific time, 8 o'clock your time, Balram? If you want to come up and let everybody know when your show is going to be on. Hey, boss.
Well, I'll start the show about 11 a.m. Pacific time.
Okay. I will try to be on time.
Yeah. I think I'm going to do the moon landing conspiracy, so everyone who's into that, feel free to join and chat it out.
So there's And then I will wait until tomorrow. So there's a conspiracy on the moon landing. Okay. All right. I will try to be on time.
Awesome.
All right.
See you there, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.